Luke Yankee wrote about your memoirs of your life, growing up with this great, legendary actress, Eileen Heckart.
Eileen Heckart.
Eileen Heckart. Tell me about this great actress. Theater, right, basically.
Well, theater, film, and television, she kind of did it all. I mean,
Yes.
her career spanned over 50 years.
Really?
Working with everybody from Mae West and Lillian Gish. Dietrich, yes. All the way up to Ellen DeGeneres and even knew Martha Stewart, who was a local caterer of ours up in Connecticut. And she won an Academy Award for the film Butterflies Are Free. She's in the Theater Hall of Fame. She won a Golden Globe for The Bad Seed.
Bad Seed. The next door neighbor.
Exactly. The mother of the alcoholic mother of the boy who'd been drowned.
Right.
And just had this phenomenal career that just went on. And as a showbiz kid, I grew up at her feet, listening to all these incredible stories. And so I've put them into this really fun book, Just Outside the Spotlight.
Love the title.
Thank you.
And not just the title, Luke. You grew up listening to these fantastic stories. Your mother. What really have you learned now at your age and writing the book about her? What have you really learned? I'm going to do it right in front of the interview. What have you learned?
I've learned so much. I think I really learned the most from my mother about acting and about life. What she would do, Skippy, is that she would use acting and her career to teach these incredible life lessons.
Right.
Everything from if she had a difficult director or perhaps a leading man that was giving her a bit of angst.
Right.
She would use that to teach me about how to deal with people, about how things work in the world. And it really was, she really was an incredible mother and used her career as really a metaphor. And I talk about that in the book, the way she used her career to teach my brothers and me these incredible life lessons.
How many in the family?
2 older brothers.
2 older brothers.
Yes.
And you're the youngest?
I'm the youngest. I'm the only one who went into the business.
You're the only one. The other 2 are?
They are back in Connecticut.
You grew up in Connecticut?
Yes.
Why Connecticut? Your mother just lived back and forth?
Well, she was mostly working on Broadway,
Right.
and that was really her first love. She did about 15 Broadway plays and is in the Theater Hall of Fame.
That's why I mentioned theater.
Yes,
Because,
exactly.
Yeah, go
exactly.
ahead.
That's kind of where she's the most known. Well, she certainly worked in
Was
all
she an
media.
Actors Studio member?
She was not at the Actors Studio. In fact, she talks about the fact that she was flunked at the Actors Studio for insufficient talent. Lee Strasberg wouldn't even let her study there. And of course, you hear those stories about people like Martin Landau, who auditioned, I don't know what it was, something like 43 times or
Yes.
something like that before he was finally accepted.
What was her very first play on Broadway?
Her first play on Broadway, she understudied Audrey Christie in a play called The Voice of the Turtle. But her first big break on was Picnic, William Inge's Picnic. Yes, which is in the
was in
early
that with her
50s.
at the
That
time?
was with Paul Newman, and where Paul Newman met Joanne Woodward. And she was playing the understudy, and Paul was playing the small role of the rich boy next door because the producers didn't think he was sexy enough to play the leading man, which is kind of ridiculous in this day and age. And Kim Stanley, it was the show
Greatest
that also
actress alive.
show that put Kim Stanley on the map. And Ralph Meeker.
Your mother and
Janice
her were
Rule.
very good friends, Kim.
They were.
Because I remember talking to Kim years ago about your mother.
Well, they actually shared a dressing room at the time and didn't understand what all the fuss was about. They didn't know why Picnic was so successful because it was the first time there'd been that kind of slice of life play.
Right.
And which now, of course, is so commonplace, but it was about this small town in Kansas and the Labor Day picnic.
Right.
And very much rural Americana. And it just became this huge hit, and they were all just as shocked as anyone.
Zachary Scott, tell me about Zachary and your mother.
Zachary Scott they worked together in summer stock when my mother was just starting out.
He loved the ladies, didn't he?
He did love the ladies,
Yeah.
but he really latched onto her and sort of took her under his wing, and she was very much a gal from Columbus, Ohio in those days.
Growing up in Columbus?
Exactly, grew up in Columbus. And he taught her really about the finer things of life. He took her to see Edith Piaf, for instance, for the first time. He taught her how to eat oysters. He would take her to places like the Stork Club. And there was a wonderful time when he took her to lunch at the home of Stark Young. And at the time, Stark Young was really the American Noel Coward. I mean, he was such a great critic and man of letters. And after this wonderful luncheon, she said, "What do I send someone like that as a thank you gift?" And Zachary Scott said, "Send him a cassava melon." She said, "You've got to be kidding. Honey, send him a cassava melon." And so, of course, in the dead of winter, she had to pay, I think, about $20, which in that day and age for a melon was unheard of.
Yes, right.
But Stark Young was just absolutely thrilled. It was the perfect thing she could have done.
She loved the theater in Manhattan, New York. It was the greatest city in the world. Luke, as a child, thinking back, sitting in the theater, watching your mother, what ran through your mind as a kid?
It was incredible. It was just incredible. I mean, I was about 7 or 8 before I realized not every kid did this, went to Broadway openings and had, exactly. And I mean, I didn't realize that not all of my classmates sat around watching Mom on televiation on Saturday nights.
You go to private school, did you?
No, I didn't. I went to public schools.
Did you really?
I did, up
nice.
in Connecticut, yes indeed. But one of the wonderful stories I tell in the book is when I was 10 years old and Ethel Merman came to a Christmas party at our home and taught me how to make a martini. I had just seen her on Broadway.
What a naughty girl. Go ahead.
I loved it.
I
had seen her do Hello, Dolly.
Hello, Dolly.
Towards the end of the run. And her agent, she had the same agent as my mother, Milton Goldman, who you probably knew.
Yeah.
And Milton asked if he could bring Miss Merman to the party. And it was wonderful because I was so enamored with her. And so I went up to her and I said, "How do you do, Miss Merman? I really enjoyed your performance in Hello, Dolly. And my mother would like to know if I could fix you a drink." And in that voice you could hear booming in the second balcony of any theater, she said, "Sure, kid, I'll have a martini." And at age 10 I said, "Oh, well, Miss Merman, I'm afraid I don't know how to make a martini." And she said, "Come on, I'll show you." So God bless her, Ethel Merman led me over to the bar and showed me exactly how to make her perfect Ethel Merman martini, which was stirred and not shaken. And then for the rest of the evening, whenever anyone would say, "Merm, can I freshen your drink?" she'd say, "No, thank you, Luke's taking care of me." And she was really charming and sent me a lovely thank you note afterwards, and she will forever have a special place in my heart.
She sounds like Rosalind Russell in Mame.
Exactly.
You were the young man.
I very much had an anti-Mame kind of upbringing. Paul Newman gave me acting lessons in the living room at 14. I was fielding calls from reporters at age 13, the night my mother won the Oscar. It was just...
She won the Oscar for
Butterflies Are Free. Yes.
Are Free.
Yes.
What a movie.
Thank you.
It was a great film.
It really was, and she had a wonderful time doing it. And of course, she had done the role on Broadway and had been nominated for a Tony for that. And then she did it in London, and she even took it on tour to Columbus, Ohio, so her mother could see it.
Oh, isn't that great? She took it to Columbus so her mother didn't fly, or what?
Her mother didn't fly, no. So
she brought it home.
Exactly.
How
so
wonderful.
she brought it home on the Kenley summer stock circuit.
Kenley?
Yes,
that
indeed.
Wonderful young gentleman.
Indeed.
I love it. Is he still around?
You know, I'm not certain if he is. I don't believe he is.
He is. Yeah, but a wonderful character. I mean, wonderful.
He was quite a character. But she did the role for really upwards of 2 years before she did the film, and then was so thrilled to win the Oscar for it. And of course, everyone thought your friend Shelley Winters was going to win the Oscar for it because they were nominated against one another for the Poseidon Adventure. And everyone, in fact, Jimmy the Greek, who was the biggest odds maker in Las Vegas at the time, thought that Shelley would win. And my mother was his only upset of the entire evening. But you know, Skippy, it was so interesting because I remember the day before, my mother cried her eyes out. She was certain that Shelley was going to win. She was so nervous that day, and she was in this grand suite at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and she got sick to her stomach because she was just such a wreck about it all, certain that she was going to lose. And then just a few minutes before her name was announced, she suddenly got this sixth sense. It was like this premonition that she was going to win. And she took off her prescription glasses and put them in my father's lap, and he knew that she couldn't see without them. He said, "What are you doing?" And she just absolutely, there's this calmness and this knowing came over her that she knew she was about to win the Academy Award, and she certainly did.
Luke, tell me something. Luke Yankee, named Luke Yankee. Your dad was an actor.
He was not an actor.
He was not?
No, he was not an actor. He was an insurance broker up in Connecticut.
He was.
Jack Yankee. People always think Luke Yankee is a stage name, but it's not. It's not. It's my real name. And my father did some things in community theater when my mother would be in Los Angeles for long stretches of time, and he would get bored. But he really was very much the civilian in the family and just the solid citizen who kind of held us all together.
And when did Luke Yankee decided, well, Mom, I want to act? When
from
did you
a very early age.
Did you really?
I can remember from a very little
first,
boy.
Luke?
Oh gosh,
Did she teach you acting at all?
Well, she did.
Maybe some ideas? Or
she
what?
always said that she was not a good teacher, but I beg to differ.
Okay.
She did, she saw everything I did in children's theater in the basement of the YMCA,
Okay.
and came and gave me copious notes, treated me like I was Laurence Olivier from the time I was 11 or 12.
Right.
And she really kind of toughened me up and prepared me for the business, and was just, once she saw that there was no stopping me, she was very supportive. As was
First
my
Broadway
father.
or first off-Broadway show you did, because you've done a lot of theater.
I did, yes.
And worked with great people, too.
Worked with a lot of great
and
people.
also director, too.
Yes, yes.
All of the combination of a whole... Tell me about this.
Well, I started acting, as I said, when I was 12 years old, and I was in all of the theatrical unions by the time I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
I got my Actors Equity card doing a production of Our Town at the American Shakespeare Theater with Fred Gwynne and Geraldine Fitzgerald and Kate Mulgrew and a bunch of extraordinary people.
Absolutely.
Yes, indeed. And then really studied acting at Juilliard and did the regional theater bit for a number of years, and then started directing, and really felt like I was wearing shoes that fit for the first time. I assistant directed 6 Broadway shows. I was a Hal Prince baby. Hal Prince has always been very supportive of my career, and just a wonderful, wonderful man to me. And then really it's just now that I've kind of come full circle with my one-man show, Diva Dish, on which the book is based.
You're doing a one-man show now.
Yes. Yes, and that actually came about after my mother passed away, as my older brothers and I were going through all of her memorabilia, sorting through a 50-year career in show business. One of my older brothers would suddenly say, "Hey Luke, what's this picture?" I'd say, "Oh, that's from the award ceremony with Cary Grant." Well, what award ceremony with Cary Grant? And I suddenly realized, Skippy, that I was the only one who knew what all of this memorabilia was. And if I didn't do something with it, this incredible legacy would be lost.
Right.
So I put it into this one-man show called Diva Dish, which has been touring the country for about 3 or 4 years now, and it's a whole multimedia thing with video clips and lots of wonderful unpublished photographs of Marilyn Monroe and Sophia Loren. And
this is great.
Yes, yes, and it's also, in addition to being kind of dishy and fun, it's also very heartfelt. I talk about saying goodbye to my mother for the last time during her bout with lung cancer, and get into
Did she battle a long time with that, Luke?
Not that long, thank God. About 6 months. I mean, she'd been such a heavy smoker.
It goes quick. Oh, she did smoke heavy.
Oh, yeah, she smoked heavily up until the day she died.
Did she really?
Yes, indeed. Yes, never quit.
Never tried to stop her?
She tried a couple of times.
It's difficult.
Once she actually went to a hypnotist and was able to stop for a couple of weeks, and then was doing a film with Bette Davis.
What was that?
It was a film called Burnt Offerings, a gothic horror film with Karen Black and Oliver Reed. And Bette Davis summoned her to dinner, not invited her, summoned her.
Yes.
and sat there chain smoking her Chesterfields and maligning and vilifying all of my mother's dearest friends in show business, to the point where when she had gone through 2 baskets of bread, she suddenly said, Betty, could I have one of your cigarettes, please?
Yes.
And Betty said, well, I thought you'd never ask. And the 2 of them sat there chain smoking for the rest of the evening. It was the only time she ever tried to quit.
Did she really smoke a lot?
She did, about between 2 and 3 packs a day.
3 or 3?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Yeah. We weren't that surprised when she passed from lung cancer. We were just surprised it didn't catch up with her until the age of 82.
She was 82.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, at the age of 81, she did an off-Broadway play called The Waverly Gallery, written by Kenneth Lonergan, who's such a marvelous writer, and who did that wonderful film You Can Count on Me a few years ago, with Mark Ruffalo, and just an excellent piece of work. And she did that play off-Broadway at the Promenade Theater, and it was about a woman's descent into Alzheimer's. And at age 81, she won more awards for a single performance in a single season than any actress in theater history.
Did you, when you wrote this book, was it difficult for Luke to start putting it together?
It wasn't difficult at the start because I loved these stories so much, and it was really kind of easy to put down these stories that I'd heard so many times. But as I was writing about her death or my father's death, some of those more poignant moments, which I go into in great detail in the book, it was very tough. And you know, Skippy, I feel that my mother was standing over my shoulder the entire time I was writing the book.
Really?
And if there was something questionable or something that I would say that perhaps she wouldn't have approved of, I would get a computer surge and lose all of my work for that day. So Mom was right there the whole time.
You're a good writer.
Thank
and
you.
You also direct, and you've done short films. Tell me about your short film, Help is on the Way.
Help is on the way. I did a short film. My mother always said that she could not have had a career without an exceptional husband and an exceptional governess.
Right.
And we had a Scottish nanny who was with our family for 35 years. And I was doing a summer film production workshop at USC and always wanted to tell the story of my nanny's first interview with my mother.
Oh, that's good.
When this woman who had really pretty severe, she'd had a brain aneurysm that had left her partially paralyzed. And she had to literally crawl up these fieldstone steps to the house for this job interview with my mother.
Right.
And so my mother sees this woman with this twisted limb and thinking, how is this woman ever going to take care of a newborn baby? And this woman with these twinkly eyes and a heavy Scottish accent looked at my mother and said, I know I have this affliction, but I know that if God will give me a baby to take care of, I'll be all right.
Wow.
And Mom said, I have a matinee, can you start tomorrow? And she said, well, don't you want to check my references? And Mom squeezed her hand and said, honey, you just gave them.
So this is your film.
This is my film, Help is on the Way.
I think it's a marvelous clip.
Thank you.
Is it out now?
No, it's not out at the moment, but
Sounds good.
thank you.
Tell me something about your theater acting. You've done lots of it. Who did you study with?
I
Anyone particular?
I studied with Herbert Berghoff. I studied at Juilliard. Oh gosh, I studied with so many people. But I always say I always got my best acting lessons in the living room.
This one right here is this gentleman is a marvelous actor. This is your mother.
Yes.
And what film?
And Keir Delay, that was in the stage production of Butterflies Are Free.
Butterflies Are Free.
Yes. Yes. And Keir Delay was a very close friend of the family's and very close with Mom. And in fact, he's come to see my one-man show and is very supportive. And
Who's
just a
some
really
of the
loving
people
man.
and moments inside of your spotlight right now?
Oh gosh, there are so many people.
I love the title.
Thank you.
It is called Just Outside the Spotlight, and it's a new book, and you're doing book signings all over the place.
Indeed. Indeed.
I think tomorrow you'll be doing a book signing. Is Thursday?
Actually, I believe at Thursday, yes, this Thursday at the Grove.
At the Grove
Barnes &
in
Noble.
Hollywood.
And then I'm off to New York, and I'll be doing book signings at the Barnes & Noble at Lincoln Center. And then a number of East Coast tours with my one-man show as well.
You're going to be doing your one-man show, too.
I am.
Great.
And then I'll be doing it this summer for a 6-week run at the Long Beach Playhouse, which I'm absolutely thrilled about.
This is your mom when you ask her. Look at that face.
Yes,
Look
I love that picture. That was
at
for
her.
Butterflies Are Free.
It's a wonderful picture.
One of my favorites.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, she's great. She does a lot of Bush of Catskill type of things.
Well, actually, she did some of them. I mean, playing the Jewish mothers.
The Jewish mothers.
Because she played a lot of overprotective mothers because she's such a strong personality.
Here's with her Oscar.
That's right, with Cloris Leachman.
I loved her.
A really fun story about the night she won the Oscar is that she and my father were there. As I mentioned earlier. And when she won, my father was so excited, Skippy, that he grabbed her and kissed her. And he grabbed her with such force that as she went up to the stage, he saw that he had skin under his thumbnail.
My God.
And he thought, oh, dear God, what have I done? But he forgot about it in the heat of the moment. Well, if you look closely at some of the publicity pictures where her chin is up, you can see this gash of blood going down towards her chin where my father gouged her as he gave her a congratulatory kiss. She used to say, honey, I was the first bloody Academy Award winner in history.
Who is her favorite? She had a favorite actor that she worked with?
Oh, favorite actor that she worked with. There were so many. She loved working with Mary Tyler Moore. They were very close friends.
This is your dad. I want to show the picture of your brother. Look at
Jack Yankee was just an incredible man. They were married for 53 years, and boy,
How did she meet him?
They met at college at Ohio State University, and they were in an amateur college theater group called the Strollers there, which is very popular at Ohio State.
Tell me about Dietrich and her. There was a story about Dietrich that called her about the dress or something.
Exactly. After my mother won the Oscar, she got back to the hotel and there was a huge stack of messages and telegrams. And the one on the top simply said, call Marlena. Regardless of the hour, call Marlena. And she thought, won't this be thrilling that my very first phone call 2 hours after winning the Oscar will be from Marlena Dietrich. So she dialed the number in Paris and she heard that voice say, hello. Hello, Marlena, it's Eileen. Darling, your makeup looked terrible. It did? But darling, it did in the movie too. And Marlene Dietrich spent the next 10 minutes berating her for her lack of style, her lack of fashion, her terrible wardrobe, because Marlene Dietrich didn't understand, in a sense, she didn't understand my mother, because since her stock in trade was glamour, she didn't understand how someone could be as talented as she thought my mother was without being glamorous.
Glamour, yes.
Yes.
She was glamour. She really
was indeed, and they were very fond of one another, and I'm very proud of the fact that I've gotten very close with Marlene's daughter, Maria Riva.
You have?
Yes, who also has a home out in Palm Springs where I have a weekend place. And I spoke with her just the other day and sent her a copy of the book.
What do you two talk about? You talk about...
Well, we talk about our mothers, and we talk about the friendship they had.
What a wonderful show that would be.
To
sit and talk to you both. That'd
Absolutely.
be wonderful.
Well, but also, Maria did a lot of work in live television.
Right.
And my mother worked in live television, and that was how they knew each other, and really how my mother got to know Marlene as well, because Maria had some wonderful parties where Marlene would be holding court.
Right.
And so they were very close for a number of years. I remember the time I met Marlene Dietrich. I was 15 years old, and we went backstage to see one of her last tours. And the entire time she was talking to my mother, she held my hand. And for 3 days afterwards, she was wearing so much perfume that I reeked of Marlene Dietrich.
Was this in New York?
This was up in Connecticut.
Okay.
And so I would get the hall pass in grade school, and I would go into the boys' room and just smell my hand so I could smell Marlene Dietrich.
John Davidson. I love John Davidson. What's happening?
Dear man.
Oh, what a good singer. What a dear man. He lost his conductor, who was a friend of mine, in the fire. In Kentucky, Ohio, somewhere in Kentucky. His conductor was a friend of mine, and I loved him. He was a wonderful... And John Davidson lost all his music, his conductor, in this fire. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that. I worked with him several years ago in 2 projects. I directed John in an off-Broadway play with Morgan Fairchild called High Infidelity.
Right.
About a sort of Clinton-esque president and his Hillary-esque wife going for marriage counseling.
Okay.
And he was just lovely. I adored working with John. And then I directed him after that in a Terrence McNally play called It's Only a Play, about backstage shenanigans down in Florida. And John is just one of the dearest, kindest men. And he doesn't get enough credit as an actor.
He doesn't at all.
You know, he is a lovely, lovely actor and
wonderful singer.
Wonderful singer.
Christopher Reeves. Talk to me about this man.
I worked with Chris at the Williamstown Theater Festival in an all-star production of The Greeks, and this was before his accident. And he was playing Achilles, the Greek warrior. It was it was all of the Greek tragedies and put into 2 evenings called The Greeks. And he was an absolutely lovely man.
Favorite movie of his, Somewhere in Time.
Oh, such a great movie.
Favorite film, favorite song, favorite everything.
Well, and of course,
wonderful film.
One of the people in that piece who was a dear, dear friend of the family's is Teresa Wright.
Right, another
who worked
great.
with my mother in The Dark at the Top of the Stairs, and who was
Joseph Cotton, was that in
no, that was on Broadway with Pat Hingle.
Pat, okay.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, I love Teresa Wright.
Yes, and she was such a kind, lovely lady.
Didn't it?
Absolutely. Just so good-hearted and just one of the dearest, kindest people, and such a wonderful actress.
Wonderful actress.
Indeed.
Indeed. I loved her. Your mother and her were very, very close.
They were, yes, for about 50 years.
She surrounded herself with very simple, great actresses and lovely. I'm using the word simple because they are. Teresa Wright's a very simple, lovely human being, and
exactly.
Nothing grandness about
No,
them.
there really wasn't. I mean, she could play the diva when she wanted to, absolutely. But most of the time, she would always say she was a wife and mother first and an actress second.
Celeste Holmes, another one.
That's right. That's right.
That's another one. You worked. Your mother worked with her, and you worked with her.
That's right.
Tell me about.
Celeste was lovely. I worked with her once again up at the Williamstown Theater Festival in the Greeks, and she was very loving and supportive. And Mom did a play with her, an Arthur Lawrence play called Invitation to a March on Broadway, which I believe was the first Broadway play of Jane Fonda.
Julie Harris.
Oh,
I'm
Julie
naming
Harris.
people that. This is what you grew up with.
Oh, Julie Harris, my heart. I just adore Julie. And I think Julie is probably one of the most beloved people in show business. I don't know anyone who has a bad thing to say about Julie Harris. When I was 14, I did a film called, my mother did a film called The Hiding Place about the Nazi invasion of Holland. And
I remember that.
Yes. And a very, very intense story about these women who had a shop just outside of Amsterdam in the town of Haarlem. Harlem where they hid the Jews and then were sent to a concentration camp. And I was over there and with my mother, happened to be on a school vacation, and had a small scene in the film with Julie Harris. And it was a sign where I'm a little Dutch boy in my little knickers and cap, and I'm handing out signs to all the shop owners saying, "Jews not welcome in this shop." And I think I'm doing a good thing, you know, because this was just at the very beginning of the Nazi invasion, where nobody really knew what was coming. And it's this wonderful moment where Julie's washing her windows, and I hand her this sign, and we have a little exchange, and then you see this look of horror cross her face as she looks at this sweet little boy who's a friend of hers, and then she looks down at the sign, and she realizes what's coming. But Julie totally deferred to me in the scene and could not have been more lovely and gracious.
Luke, the book is out now, doing extremely well. The reviews are just incredible. Here are you and your mother.
Exactly.
Let's get the
my favorite picture of the two of us. We were about 20. I was about 20 years old.
20 years old.
And I framed that picture and gave it to her for Christmas this year with a note saying, "Mama, this is the way I want to remember us." So I'm so thrilled to have that on the back of this book.
May I say something? Shelley Winters loved your mother. I used to go to Silver Spoon with her. She used to talk about your mother a lot. They were very close.
Yes, indeed.
And they had great memories. Hollywood today is missing two great actresses. They really are. There are a lot of...
Absolutely.
What do you think of the young actresses, Luke? Tell me. You know, you grew up where stars were stars and Hollywood was Hollywood.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
Well, there are some great actresses that I really admire, but I think it's very different. I mean, when there was the studio system and where these people were sort of, you know, protected and really nurtured in a way that I don't think they are today. But also, too, since my mother's career was not the most important thing to her, since she always said that being a wife and mother was more important, she really had that tremendous foundation and that strength. And the reason I call the book Just Outside the Spotlight is that my mother, she used to say, "Thank God I don't have Elizabeth Taylor's problems." She was the second banana. She was the best friend to Marilyn Monroe, the best friend to Sophia Loren, the best friend to Shirley Booth. She was the one just outside the spotlight.
What'd she say about Marilyn Monroe? Why is, you know, Marilyn today is like the star they're talking about? Why?
Exactly.
What did she ever say?
My mother had two sets of stories she would tell about Marilyn, and one set was about this woman who could be very unprofessional, coming to the set late, not knowing her lines.
Right.
But the other set of stories she could never tell without bursting into tears until the day she died, about this woman who was very vulnerable, desperate to be loved, desperate to have a child. In fact, my older brothers were out on the set of Bus Stop when they were shooting in Phoenix, where Mom played Marilyn's best friend.
Right.
And Marilyn would take the grapefruits and oranges out of these gift baskets she would get sent from the studio types every night, and she would go out onto the